Welcome back to the Sports Complex on a Thursday afternoon. On today's show, we will get more into Texas and Iowa State. Some of the categories where Texas may have to play above and beyond to get the results they need in Ames, Iowa. We'll get into Patrick's Big Fat Poll today. Some sound from Hook 'em Up with Ian Rod B. We'll get into Texas basketball getting another win last night over Rice, 64-80. Texas gets the win. Maybe a little NFL talk. Texans, Cowboys. Get into all that. Also, great interview with Jerry Hamilton from Ian Rod B as well. All that coming up on the show today, as well as, of course, your text. Whatever you guys want to talk about, whatever you guys want to push a conversation, you guys drive the show. I just try to keep it on the rails. 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. So text in, keep us going, keep us honest for the rest of the show, and we will have a good time today on the show talking about some of the great things. We're a week away from Thanksgiving, so we're starting to get excited for turkey and good meals, or whatever you're going to have, or whatever your meals are. If you have your Friendsgiving, and then you can spread it out and have a good time. Two games left in the college football season, well, at least for Texas. 2 games left. It's going to be a good time of year. The weather's getting nicer, unless you're going to be in Ames, Iowa, in which case the weather's not nice. I know that's a thing that everybody in the Big 12 or everyone in Texas is happy about leaving the Big 12 to not have to deal with the weather in Ames, Iowa. Last I looked, it looks to be about game time. It'll be between freezing and under freezing. So they're saying it'll start around 32 is what they're saying, but it may get colder as the night goes on. So not a great weather for Texas against Iowa State. But I appreciate that Texas is going to get another shot to get out there. They're going to be able to go up against this Iowa State team that the more you look at this game and the more you start to dive into the numbers, Iowa State looks like one of those opponents that just is going to be a pain in Texas' butt. If you watch the film, it doesn't necessarily seem like it should be that way. And Texas definitely has more talent on their team. Texas definitely has the better team. However, Iowa State has a lot of things going for it that just seem to bounce in the way of Texas, which is they do not turn the ball over a lot, and they turn the other team over. But they don't like to turn the ball over. They win the turnover battle, which is not something that helps out Texas very much. That Texas is not the best team in the world at getting turnovers, and we know that they had history of getting turnovers. This Iowa State team is pretty balanced, where they can run the ball and they can throw the ball. It's not like if you make them a one-dimensional team, they are not beat by any circumstance. They can still come out and accomplish what they want to accomplish in that game by throwing the ball. And they throw the ball in the way that kills Texas, which is throwing underneath routes and just throwing those little slants and everything like that, and not really worrying about getting too much. And when you play bend but don't break, they just say, cool, we'll bend you all the way back and keep doing it. We'll play time and possession. We'll play to not turn the ball over. We'll play safe with the ball. We'll do all of those things. And then on the other side of the ball, they play that 3 down, 3 high, which we have some great sound from Rob Babers about how you can beat 3 down, 3 high. I hope Sark is listening. We're going to play it again just in case Sark missed it in the morning. We can play it again. And I know. I'm jest. It's in jest. But this team also has a type of defense that is going to give Texas problems, and not letting you take the big shots over the top, but also not letting you, basically giving you more in the middle. And Texas does not like to take the middle. For whatever reason, it's not one of Sark's big key points. And then there's the one issue that when I was looking up about different stats that Iowa State has, and they're pretty good on defensive end, and their offensive stats are okay, but nothing to look out at. But one offensive stat that is pretty good is that Iowa State's only allowed 9 sacks all season. They're 7th in the NCAA in sacks allowed, which is a really, really good number. With Texas around 18. So this is a team that, because of how they play, because they get the ball out quick, because they run the ball a fair amount of times, they don't get a lot of sacks. They have a good offensive line. That's why the young man felt the need, or felt the ability, to go out there and talk some trash. Now, I think Texas is still going to be able to handle this defensive line. I think they're still going to be able to handle the running game. The defensive line, Devondre Sweat, Byron Murphy are still going to come in and get the defensive line. But one of the main factors that you want to see in this game when you know Texas has issues covering the passing game, and one of the worst passing offenses now because of those fourth quarter numbers that continue to happen, it really drops their ratings as is statistically of a passing defense, with whether that's fair or not because it's all in the fourth quarter, that's what it is. So Texas is going to have to figure out a way to pressure the quarterback without sending too much that you're leveraging and allowing them to get shots over the top, but sending pressure that you're not, I don't know if you're going to be able to create organic pressure against this Iowa State team that has done a very good job of keeping Rocco Becht clean, that he can get out of the pocket or he can stay in the pocket, and he's doing a good job of not getting the sacks, getting the ball out. It's one of the things that Texas is going to have an issue with in this game. Sark spoke to the media today about the Iowa State game. We'll play some of that audio, and this is Sark kind of opening it up about where Texas is going into the Iowa State game.
Obviously, great opportunity for our team this Saturday night. Another road game, conference play at night on the road. Hostile environment. It's kind of been a common theme. I didn't do it by accident when I talked about what I talked about in preseason and at Big 12 Media Days of recognizing, that this is our opportunity to go on the road and go on a mission to try to win a Big 12 championship. And we put ourselves in position to be competing for it in November. But we also understand when we go on the road, the environments that we're going into. And so I think for our players, it's really important that we continue to play with poise and composure. We need great leadership, and we need to execute the game at a high level. And I think that our players understand that. And I think that they've done a good job this week of preparing for that. I was really excited about just the way they practiced today. I mean, we had awesome energy. They were fast. And that's the style of game that we need to play. And so I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and I know that our players are as well.
Yeah, you're looking forward to the opportunity. This is going to be one of the games that if you can get through this, I know Texas Tech is going to be always a trap game. If you can get at Texas Tech, it's the last game, it's Thanksgiving. There's a lot of factors, and we'll talk about all that next week. But this is a big game for Texas to test their mettle. If they can go in when the weather is not nice anymore and you're playing in cold weather that you haven't been dealing with all season long, that you're going into a place where this is your last Big 12 road trip that you got to do, and you got to go to someone else's place, and they're going to be going after you when you have to go into a team that isn't necessarily great at any one thing. There's nothing that you can feel confident in shutting them down and getting the edge. They're just going to be the pest that keeps poking at you. And for Texas, that pest that keeps poking on you and just doing the right thing over and over again is the worst possible scenario. Because what Texas has done is been able to shut down what you do best, overcome it, go out and put out a big lead, and then basically hope to hold on till the end. That's what Texas has been doing in the last, 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. I mean, other than the BYU game, which was pretty easy, other than the Baylor game, a lot of these games have come back, and in those fourth quarters, it wasn't, you got out in that lead, and then you had to fight off everybody. That's what you had to do. This Iowa State team is exactly the type of team that will continue to push, continue to fight against Texas, and continue to just take what Texas gives them over and over again, which means Texas cannot get complacent at any point in this game, because whatever you give them, they will take. And the reality is, if you give them 5 yards, they'll take 5 yards. So sometimes you're going to have to hold them to 4 or 5 yards, but you cannot start giving them 15-yard plays, which is what Texas has been doing to everybody else. Trying to cover one area and leaving one area wide and vulnerable with guys playing off coverage. I get you don't want to play press coverage because that's how, someone can come back on you pretty quickly by hitting a shot over the top. You don't want to give them that either, but you also don't want to sit so far off of these guys that they're able to just pick and prod at you, because this is a game where with a no Jonathan Brooks and with a Quinn Ewers coming off an injury, going to walk into a place where, anyone who knows who's ever heard anything, that the colder it is, the more that is going to kind of act up on you. And the more pain there's going to be, and that pain threshold, and I think Quinn's going to fight through whatever he can do. But if that power of the arm starts to go down in the second half, like I feel like it did last week, it's going to be more and more difficult for Texas to hold on to this game. And Texas is going to need to understand how to play like a championship team. And this is really where, you can say with Kansas State and TCU, and those guys have always been problems. Going to Ames, Iowa has always been a problem for Texas too. Now, you've won those last two, and you're not fully up to being a championship team because championship teams be able to close out a little bit better than what Texas is doing. But you're getting closer. You're taking that step to being closer to being that championship team. Sark spoke about how there is inexperience, how there is a lot of young guys on this team that haven't really played for anything, that haven't been in that position. Because if you're saying, anyone in the last 3 years or 4 years, anyone that's been there, it's you. If you've been in Texas, you may not have been able to be playing at that level. And really, when you're 9-1 and you're able to get through, but you're playing and not, you may be on the road. But, you play Kansas State at home, you go to TCU, and it's a little hostile, and you almost let that one get away from you. And now you're going to Ames, Iowa, where you've had problems, and you need to bear down and focus on what you're doing, because this is a big challenge of somebody who's just going to not go away. And that's what experience, and that's what championship experience teaches you how to do, to close those games out. Here's Sark speaking about the having an experience in championship, inexperience in championship experience, but having some veterans and some coaches to try and help coach this team to understand the importance of how to get through these last few weeks of the season.
Well, I think that's where leadership steps in. I've been fortunate to be a part of some pretty exciting championship runs. Our coaching staff has. A lot of the coaches on our staff have been in the college football playoff, have won conference championships. And so how we present it to them, I think, is important. I think the players that have been a part of those types of runs have been helpful. Naturally, he's won a national championship back-to-back years, so he's a really good voice of reason. But I also think we recruit a very specific type of player here that is highly competitive, that expects to win championships. A lot of these guys, the guys we're recruiting didn't come here just to put on the jersey and say they're playing football at Texas. They came here to win championships. And so now that we're in this realm, that we're competing for a conference championship right now, I think our players are probably more excited than anything. Like, okay, yeah, this is where we're supposed to be. Now let's go finish the mission. But definitely there's not a sense of anxiety or anything like that. I think there's a real sense of confidence in what we're doing. But they also appreciate the fact that we're extremely demanding as a staff still. I've probably coached them as hard a couple of days this week as I've coached in a long time, because I know what is needed as you work your way through November, and the idea that we get everybody's best shot. We need to ensure that they get our best shot for 4 quarters, and so that's what we're striving to go do.
That's the reality. For 4 quarters, can you go out and give Iowa State a constant barrage? Constant. We're not letting up and letting them back in and going into it. Are you able to constantly, where you're on your last road trip and you're on your last, technically the Big 12 championship, hopefully it'll be that. Hopefully the bowl game will be a road trip. Hopefully all of those things, right? But we're saying the last conference road trip, regular conference game that is scheduled, that you're ready to go play. Can you be ready to go into that atmosphere? Can you be ready to go and play where it's colder? Can you be ready to play on a team that all they want to do is ruin your season, but they're disciplined enough to do it in a really kind of boring, annoying way, that 4 quarters is what it's going to take. And the moment you let your foot off the gas, this Iowa State team can come back in. And you're not going to maybe get the big plays over them you may not be able to get a big sack defensively. Defensively, you may not get that turnover. Defensively, you're going to get beaten down more than you're more likely to go after them. I think if you get 2 sacks in this game, you're doing pretty good against this Iowa State team. Now, you can get pressures, you can get hurries, you can make them throw the ball ahead of schedule, and you need to do that. That's extremely important in this game. because throwing the ball ahead of schedule, knocking them off of schedule is very important. You want to take an Iowa State team that is not necessarily the most talented and make them make talent plays, because that's something that they're not is adapt to doing. They're a team that if you allow them to do what they want, which is what Texas has been doing in the second half with that defense, then Iowa State is the type of team who can kind of just march down the field on you over and over and over again. Use time of possession, be able to use it, and then speed it back up because they know what they're doing. They're efficient. They know what they're going to be able to do. Texas has the ability to do this. Texas has all the players. Texas has everything they need to go into Ames, Iowa, and handle this game. Do they have the leadership on the field? Can a Quinn Ewers, who is beat up, be a leader on the sideline to get this team where they wanted to go? Can JT Sanders, Xavier Worthy, AD Mitchell get the guys, rile it up, and ready to go? Can Jay Witt go and be the workman to prove to everybody what's happening? Can Keelan Robinson go out on special teams and be the guy and then help lead this running back room? Can CJ Baxter and the young guy and Jaden Blue, who haven't got a lot of playing time, step into this role and not try and do too much and just do what you got to do? Go out there and win the football game. Because I think that's where Texas needs to be in this game. So one more thing before we get to the big fat poll, because it was another interesting part of what Sark talked about today. And someone asked him, I've talked about on the show this week, and I thought that was an interesting question because I've kind of talked about this week, realizing that you're 9-1, realizing that preseason expectations, you're at least on path. And I know some people said we need to be undefeated and all that, but look, for the reality of what Texas could have been this season, for what they are right now, Texas is on there. And he was asked if he ever stops and smells the roses, stops and celebrates the victories within the game, because you have to. Because when you don't, the victories don't mean anything. And when it's no longer fun to win, when you're not feeling that and it doesn't feel like that great part again, it starts to lose it. And once you get into November and you're winning, and how do you keep it fresh? Sark was asked about that. I thought he gave a good answer. There's also a great part about Nick Saban that no one expected to hear in this next clip. But it's Sark talking about stopping to celebrate the wins throughout the season so that you're ready to keep winning and keep moving to that next level.
I do take moments to appreciate it. And I make sure I try to celebrate the small wins along the way. Like I said, I've had some great mentors in this sport, and I think Pete Carroll was the master of that in our time at USC. And I think everybody used to think it was just about, could we get back to another national championship? Nobody celebrated more in a locker room after a win than Pete Carroll. And I think one of the things that's probably a misnomer about Nick Saban is that he has no fun, and that it's just it's business and it's back to work. He just doesn't let him shoot videos of him dancing in the locker room after a game. He enjoys it too. Like, we work way too hard not to enjoy these moments with our players. And I get it. Hey, we all want to play a perfect game, and we all want the game to go perfectly. But when you know the amount of work and rehab and recovery and meeting times that our players put in throughout the week, when you go get a hard-fought road win in conference play, and you watch guys make some plays at critical moments after the game, we celebrate the heck out of those. And I don't miss sight of that, because I do believe this. I believe just like losing is contagious, winning is contagious, and winners find a way to win. But if you don't celebrate winning, then you let it go by the wayside, it might not be as contagious. And so we've got a culture right now that believes they're going to win, that we're going to find a way to win. We want to play great. We want to play better than we played the week before, and the week before that, and the week before that. But at the end of the day, I don't let those small victories, whether they're in game, in practice, or post game, just go by the wayside. We try to celebrate those things and have a real appreciation for player development, whether they're scout team players. That's why we give out scout team players of the week every Monday morning, because guys are getting better. That's why we celebrate in our good, bad, and ugly film session on Monday, where I can show video clips of plays that players might miss because it's a backside block on a punt return or things of that nature, because those are the reasons why you win, are those small victories. And so I don't take it for granted, and we're very fortunate. I think that you take over a program and you try to build yourself into a team that is competing for a championship in November. And now that we're here, man, I'm not gonna just let it go by without enjoying the moments. Now, there's other times we got to be dialed in, and we got to coach, and we got to teach, and we got to motivate, whether it's on the field or off the field. But man, this is why we're here. So I'm gonna definitely take a few moments here and there to enjoy it.
So that's it. And there's a couple things. Nick Saban dancing just seems crazy. I don't believe it, but he says it exists. Secondly, winning is contagious. And it's true that winning, the more you're around people that are winners, the more you're driven in that way, the more you feel the way that you have that extra piece of you that feels you're supposed to be winning. And it's that cocky confidence of winners. And Texas can start to have that at 9-1, but you need to have it in the right spots. And they're going to need it against Iowa State to go out there. And if Iowa State thinks that you're the stuck up, we believe that our S doesn't stink, then go show them that it doesn't. Go show them that it doesn't. Because that's what you need to have. You need to have that ability to go after it. Let's get to Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number. Going to ask you a few questions to chime in. I want you to jump in. If you got another take, you got a hot take, if you got something else you want to talk about at Texas football, if you got a question, or if you just want to have a conversation about Texas football, that's what the text line is for. Big Fat Poll of the day. Today, I want to ask you offensively, which player do you want to see get the most targets? Which player do you want to see offensively? Which weapon? Do you want it to be a Keelan Robinson because this is going to be a colder game, because you might want to kind of keep it a little bit safer? Or do you want to see it to be an X-Man? You want to see it be a JT Sanders? And we know Jay Witt up there. It's going to be hard for him to get there, but someone may throw a Jay Witt in there. And then defensively, I want you to know, who do you want to see get the most called rushes? Because this is a team that is only allowed 9 sacks. That's 7th in the country. It's tied with some other teams. There's not a lot of teams that have allowed less sacks than Iowa State has. Who do you want to see them rushing? Who's a person you trust to get in at the quarterback? Who are you calling pressures for? Who are you trying to get in there to not miss him, all that, but get those big pressures? Who is that you'd like to see pressuring quarterback? 512-447-3776. If you've got any other takes of how this defense can help contain Iowa State, if you've got anything else you want to put into the conversation for Texas Iowa State, send that in. 512-447-3776. We come back. We're going to keep the show rolling here. We're going to play some Up Sound. We'll get to your text messages, and we'll keep the show rolling right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn 109 AM 1260, the Horn app, and hornfm.com, and back on YouTube.